You sure have enough money in your account? Even though she could easily check, Agatha assumed from my appearance that I was short on cash. Are you really sure you're okay? There's no need to put on airs if you can't afford it, you know. In all my time coming to this bank, I've never been treated like this before. That's enough. Banks are supposed to hold money for everyone from children to the elderly. How can you justify this kind of behavior? Wow. For someone with such a childish appearance, you sure know how to lecture someone. How cute. But you're actually broke, aren't you? I'm telling you not to push yourself. I'm used to being looked down upon because of my appearance, so I don't usually get angry over things like that. But this time was different. Not only was I treated horribly last time, but today I was made to wait for a whole 5 hours. If this is the result, I've reached my limit. I'm going to make them suffer a little for this. I'm Wendy, 55 years old. I run an apparel company. When I say apparel, it's a bit of a unique company that mainly sells universally designed clothing. Universal design, to put it simply, is a design that can be used by many people regardless of age or disability. For example, scissors that can be used easily by both right-handed and left-handed people, or the raised on the side of a shampoo bottle. Awareness is still low, but recently, as we enter an era of diversity, recognition is gradually increasing. The reason I started this company is actually because I have personal experience struggling with being short, prone to weight gain, and having difficulty moving my fingers due to a genetic condition. When I was in elementary school, this made it hard for me to make friends, and there were times I couldn't even go to school. Back then, there wasn't even a word for school refusal, and my teachers just thought I was being lazy. But my parents understood how I felt and amazingly let me study abroad. They researched how the Nordic countries have well-developed welfare systems, and I decided to move there with my mother. After moving, there was of course the language barrier to deal with, but I no longer had to worry about interpersonal relationships and was able to have all sorts of experiences. My parents' support, teachings, and the experience of studying abroad are still my treasures today. I now run a Nordic American company, but I also set up a branch in the US a few years ago. These days I split my time between the Nordic countries and the US. When setting up the branch, I thought it would be good to also open a business account in the US, but I had trouble deciding which bank to use. So I consulted with my father, Ladarius, and decided to go with Starlight Bank. Ladarius was acquainted with the branch manager at the time, so they took good care of him. Hearing that, I decided to go with them too. The manager at the time, Harmon, was a really wonderful person who taught me all sorts of things, as I recall. This time, we're establishing another overseas branch, and I thought I'd go to ask for advice on how to transfer a large sum of money to that country. I figured the branch manager would surely have some good ideas. And yet, I was about to have a terrible experience. Thinking that showing up suddenly would inconvenience him, I decided to make an appointment by phone. Thank you for your continued patronage. This is Agatha from Starlight Bank. When Agatha answered the phone, I told her I wanted to meet with Harmon. Then Agatha started speaking with a half-laugh. How many years ago are you talking about? That person is the previous one. For a bank employee I'm speaking to for the first time, what a rude way of talking. Well then, if that's the case, I'd like to visit to greet the new person in charge as well, so could you put me through the manager? When I asked that, she answered again with a half-laugh. There's no way the branch manager would meet with someone they hardly know. You should be able to figure that out if you think about it a little. And without fully listening to what I had to say, she just kept telling me to come during business hours if I wanted to discuss something. Thinking this was going nowhere, I told her I understood, half resigned. It was just over the phone, so I couldn't really tell, but there was a malicious air that I hadn't felt when I opened the business account. In the first place, it's strange for the bank itself to let an employee handle calls like that. With those doubts in mind, I decided to go to Starlight Bank the next day. The accounting manager who has authority over the account said they would go, but I decided to go myself because I wanted to see what the atmosphere was like. The next day, I arrived at the bank and looked for Agatha. I only needed to greet Harmon and discuss things, so it didn't have to be Agatha, but I really wanted to confirm her face. Little did I know this would be the first step into hell. "Excuse me, my name is Wendy. Is Agatha here?" I spoke with her on the phone yesterday, but when I told this to the employee who greeted me, they went to call Agatha. I followed them with my eyes. As the employee approached someone who seemed to be Agatha, Agatha looked in my direction. Then in an instant, she got an expression as if she had found prey. "Ms. Wendy, thank you for waiting. What can I assist you with today?" After speaking a bit politely, Agatha made a startled face. Then, with a smirk, she started talking in a different tone. "What brings you here today? Did you come with your daddy or mommy?" She clearly changed the way she spoke after seeing my appearance. When I, being less than 55 inches tall, walk down the street, I sometimes get treated like that, so I'm used to it. So without really minding, I started to speak. "As I mentioned on the phone yesterday, my name is Wendy. I'd like to greet the new manager since he's changed, and I also wanted to consult about making an overseas transfer from the business account. Since I'm talking about an overseas transfer from a business account, they should be able to tell that I'm at least a working adult. Plus, even though I'm short, I have the face of someone who's experienced a fair bit in life. There's no way they could seriously think I'm a child." And yet Agatha didn't change the way she spoke. "Is your dad the company president? You sure know about difficult things like transferring money from a business account." She continued talking in a condescending way the whole time. I wonder if you can understand. Harmon said he's out doing sales calls today, so he's working outside and not here. He'll be here tomorrow, so can you come back then? Next time bring your dad or mom with you, okay? Excuse me, I'm already old enough to be called ma'am, so how long are you going to keep talking to me like that? Thinking it was quite rude, I gently told her my age range. Oh my. I'm so very sorry about that. I thought you were a child. Anyway, Harmon is out today, so could you please come back tomorrow? Thinking that staying here any longer would only upset me, I just told her I'd come again tomorrow and tried to leave the bank. Of course I thought this treatment was unacceptable, but with all the much harder things I've experienced in my life so far, this level of thing doesn't faze me at all. Anyway, it seems Harmon will be here tomorrow, so I left the bank thinking I'll discuss and decide various things then. The next day, when I arrived at the bank, Agatha was talking loudly with a colleague. I wonder if that small robot cat is coming today. A robot cat? I wondered if there was some kind of event going on, but quickly realized they were talking about me. I'm short, stocky, and my fingers don't move very well, so my hands are always slightly curled. I was amazed at how terrible they were making fun of my appearance. Then she noticed me and approached with a smirk. Ms. Wendy, you're waiting for Harmon, right? I'm very sorry, but Harmon is currently in a meeting and it looks like it's going to take a while. Will you wait? I have time today, so I decided to wait. I see. About how long do you think it will take? For some reason, this question seemed to put Agatha in a bad mood, and she switched back to the same way of talking as yesterday. Hey, have you ever had a job? There's no way to know what time a meeting will end. Maybe it's too hard for a kid to understand. Just wait here quietly until you're called. Spitting out those words, Agatha went back behind the counter. I wondered if yesterday was just an illusion, and regretted coming here a little. If I had asked the accounting manager, this probably wouldn't have happened. But I really wanted to greet Harmon directly, so it couldn't be helped. I waited with those thoughts in mind. However, no matter how long I waited, there was no sign of being called. From time to time, Agatha would glance at me and laugh, which was also bothering me. Every hour, I would try asking someone else, but perhaps out of deference to Agatha, they would say they'd ask her and then just repeat, "Please wait a little longer." Having waited this long, I became stubborn and decided to wait until the very end. However, after 5 hours had passed, I thought it was a waste of time to wait any longer and went to talk to Agatha. "Agatha, I've been waiting for 5 hours now. About how much longer will it be?" "Huh? You've got plenty of time, don't you? Wait a little longer. You're the one who said you'd wait." Ah, I knew it. This person has no manners as a bank employee or even as a working adult. I'm getting sick of keeping my business funds in a bank that employs people like this. "I'm sorry. I can't continue my relationship with Starlight Bank any longer, so please close my account." "Huh? That's fine, but do you even have any money in the account?" Even though she could easily check, she apparently assumed from my appearance that I had no money. "Are you sure you're okay? You don't need to put on airs if you can't afford it. I've been to various banks, but this is the first time in my life I've been treated like this at a bank." "That's enough. Banks are supposed to hold money for all sorts of people, from children to the elderly. And yet, this kind of response is allowed? Huh? For someone with such a childish appearance, you sure know how to lecture people. How cute. But you don't actually have any money, right? I'm telling you not to push yourself. I'm used to people looking down on me because of my appearance, so that kind of thing doesn't make me angry. But this time is different. Not only was I treated horribly last time, but today I was made to wait for 5 hours. If this is the result, I've reached my limit. I'm going to make them suffer a little for this. I made up my mind. I was so angry that I didn't even greet Harmon and immediately went home to call our accounting manager. I was worried it might be difficult to do in one day, but surprisingly, it went smoothly. Ah, I'm relieved that I'll never have to go to that bank again. I was so irritated yesterday that I couldn't sleep well, but tonight I should be able to sleep soundly and comfortably. With that thought, I got into bed. I must have been in a really good mood, because I unusually overslept. When I woke up, it was already past 10 o'clock. I hurriedly got dressed and started getting ready to head to the office. Then I heard an unpleasant buzzing sound coming from the living room. Wondering what it could be, I went towards the sound and found that my smartphone had been ringing non-stop. When I sleep, I focus solely on sleeping, so I don't bring my smartphone into the bedroom. That's why I hadn't noticed until just now. Still, there was an incredible number of missed calls. When I checked the number, it was from Starlight Bank. Ah, this is about yesterday, I realized instantly, but decided to ignore it for a while. As far as I was concerned, the matter was already settled. The buzzing sound was annoying in manner mode, so I switched it to silent mode. Still, the employees at my company are excellent. I had anticipated that the bank would call the company as soon as they noticed yesterday's incident. So I told my employees to forward everything to me, as I would handle this matter. That must be the reason for all these missed calls. Grateful to my employees for properly following my nonsensical instructions, I headed to the office. Up until a moment ago, my smartphone had only shown calls from the bank's landline, but now mobile numbers were showing up as well. Listening to the voicemail, I found out it was from Harmon, but I continued to ignore it. At the company, the accounting department manager was waiting for me. When I expressed my gratitude for yesterday's incident, he informed me that 2 employees named Harmon and Agatha were here. I can't believe they even came to the company. The accounting manager explained the situation to them, saying that I was fully booked today and couldn't meet with them, but apparently they said they would wait for however many hours it took. If that's the case, I briefly thought about making them wait for hours, but having them wait forever would be troublesome in its own way. I headed swiftly to the reception room. In the reception room, Agatha, who showed no signs of remorse, and Harmon, who looked restless, were sitting with a gloomy atmosphere.
It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Harmon, the branch manager of Starlight Bank. I deeply apologize for causing you distress, Ms. Wendy,
he said, bowing deeply. Agatha followed suit and reluctantly bowed her head.
Ah, you mean yesterday's incident? We've already taken appropriate measures on our end, so there's no need for an apology. As for her, we have some thoughts on our side as well, but we'll notify you in writing later. Well then, let's leave it at that for today.
As I said that and tried to stand up, Harmon started speaking rapidly, although stammering.
About the $10 million from yesterday. Is there any way you could reconsider?
Agatha listened to Harmon's words with a scornful attitude, as if ridiculing them.
The $10 million. We'll be closing all transactions with your bank later, so we'll be withdrawing the remaining funds as well. Thank you for everything up until now. Withdraw? That would be problematic.
Even if he says that, I have no intention whatsoever of doing business in the future with a bank that has such rude employees.
My decision won't change. Well then, let's end this discussion here. My schedule is completely full today. I'm sorry, but please allow me to take my leave.
As I said that and tried to stand up, Agatha said something amusing again.
Harmon, what's the big deal? This company doesn't have much name recognition yet and will probably go under soon anyway. Lending money to a no-name company is actually a risk, you know? If we borrow my dad's influence, there's nothing to worry about, right?
We're not even asking for a loan in the first place, but she doesn't seem to understand that and keeps acting all high and mighty. Next to her, Harmon is sweating profusely. I wondered why Harmon was being so timid with her.
If member companies of the Chamber of Commerce use our bank, there won't be any problems. So it's fine. Let's just ignore this childish old lady. No matter how you look at her, she doesn't seem capable of doing her.
This person is really good at dissing people based on their appearance. And I realized that Agatha's dad is the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce. I see, so that's why she can have this kind of attitude.
Well, it seems we've reached an understanding, so with that.
This is already the 3rd time I've declared the end of the meeting. And yet, there's still no sign of it actually ending. As I stood up to escort the 2 of them out, Harmon's phone rang. Harmon initially tried to ignore it, but it kept ringing persistently. Instead of leaving the room and taking the call outside, the branch manager signaled to me with his eyes, "Excuse me for a moment," and answered the phone.
Hello. This is Harmon. What's the matter? What did you say?
Harmon talked on the phone for a while, then sighed as he hung up and held his head in his hands. I instantly judged that this was going to take a while.
Agatha, what kind of customer service did you really provide yesterday?
Huh?
There was this old lady who looked like a child, so I just kindly explained things to her as if she were a kid. What about it?
Harmon let out a big sigh, took a breath, and then muttered in a desperately low voice.
The number of account closures suddenly increased, and just today, 1/3 of our customers closed their accounts. It's because of you.
What do you mean?
Why is it my fault? Then Harmon showed me a social media site on his smartphone. Lo and behold, there was a video of my exchange with Agatha. Apparently, one of the customers who was there yesterday had recorded our exchange on video. It was uploaded to social media and is spreading at an incredible speed. Our faces and Agatha's name tag are blurred out, but I'm impressed by the true power of netizens. In no time at all, the branch name and her name were exposed. The comments even say that this bank is in trouble and to withdraw money quickly before it goes under. It seems people are mistakenly thinking the bank is going to fail and are rushing to withdraw their money. Yesterday, I transferred the $10 million in our business account. I thought that would deal a blow to this bank. In fact, I was satisfied with just moving the money and hadn't thought about doing anything more, but to think it would turn out like this. For better or worse, a punishment many times greater than I had imagined is now being inflicted on Agatha and the branch. Perhaps after being contacted by Agatha's dad, she looks at her smartphone in dread. How are you going to make up for this? This incident is already national news. I'm sorry, but I have to report it to headquarters too. I can't guarantee what will happen to you going forward. No way! Let's sue the person who filmed this video for defamation. Then the customers will come back to us and it'll be fine. Even after all this, she is still saying something airhead. It's true that since it was secretly filmed, we may be able to sue them legally. However, the fact that she made this kind of blunder is now an event that can no longer be hidden. As a bank, the fact that they let this go unchecked will likely become an issue as well. After all, in that video, there wasn't a single employee who made any move to stop her. Just then, the accounting department manager came over to me and whispered in my ear. Apparently, my father Ladarius had seen the video too. When I checked my smartphone, there were several missed calls from Ladarius. I had completely forgotten to turn off silent mode. I called Ladarius. Wendy, what in the world is going on with that video? Insulting you like that is the thing I hate most. Harmon is here, would you like to talk to him? When I asked that, Ladarius said he wanted to talk. I put the smartphone on speaker mode. Ladarius's anger was unrelenting. Harmon could do nothing but apologize profusely, and Agatha finally seemed to realize the gravity of the situation. I'm sorry, Harmon, but I'm going to have to speak with your board of directors as well. This is equivalent to insulting my business. When he said that, Agatha laughed a little. Talk to the board of directors? Are you sure that's okay? There's no way they'll talk to you. They're important people, after all. Just when I thought she was showing a little remorse, this response, she's truly a hopeless person. Young lady, you don't seem to understand who I am yet. Not that I particularly want you to know, but do you recognize the name Business Trading Company Chairman? When Ladarius said that, both Harmon and Agatha's expressions stiffened. Business Trading Company? That's right. He serves as the chairman of a fairly large company, even among American general trading companies. There are probably very few working adults who don't know Business Trading Company. Since I was born, my dad has also turned his attention to people with physical disabilities, constructing welfare facilities, learning support facilities for people with disabilities, barrier-free projects, and many other welfare initiatives. And he let me have all sorts of experiences as well. I may be at a disadvantage physically, but he made sure I acquired more than enough knowledge to be able to hold my own. Investing and running a company are a couple examples of that. That's why I had a considerable amount of money from a young age and have been able to run my own business without taking out loans from banks. Amidst all that, he seems to be extremely angry this time about his daughter being treated horribly because of her physical appearance.
When I was young, Ladarius often got angry about these kinds of things, but now that I'm older and haven't had these experiences much lately, it's been a while since I heard Ladarius's angry voice. I'm 55 years old, geez, I thought, feeling a little embarrassed. Then I heard a quiet, sniffling voice. It was Agatha.
I am so sorry. When I was a kid, I was bullied for being short, and when I saw her, I was reminded of my old self and I'm truly sorry.
Saying that, she started crying. What a ridiculous reason.
Agatha, you shouldn't do to others what you hate having done to you. Didn't your parents teach you that? Or were you taught to thoroughly inflict pain on others?
When I said that, she burst into tears. In any case, I had accomplished what I wanted to do, so I told Harmon and Agatha that I'd rather not have them stay any longer and had them leave. I also told them that a lawyer would be in touch about further measures. The bank's CEO immediately held an apology press conference, which seemed to be effective in stopping customers who closed their accounts from leaving. However, Ladarius's anger could not be quelled, so he closed his account. This time it seems it was his personal account, not the company's, so the bank managed to avoid bankruptcy. Harmon was found to have neglected his guidance duties up until now and was transferred. He was apparently sent to an affiliated company in the countryside. Agatha was of course fired from the bank and is now unemployed. Plus, since I sued her for defamation, she's now preparing a settlement payment to resolve my lawsuit out of court. The video became national news and spread quite a bit, so it will probably be difficult for her to find a job for a while. As a result, Agatha's dad apparently had to resign as chairman of the Chamber of Commerce. As for me, I'm still living in two places as usual. And surprisingly, after that video spread, our clothes started selling even more. That video exposed my embarrassing side, but it seems to have served as advertising for my company to about the same degree. I never imagined it would get this much of a reaction, so needless to say I was surprised. And incredibly, a publisher who took an interest in my life story invited me to turn my life and my parents' lives into a book. Thinking my life could be useful to someone, I readily agreed. I'm currently in the process of writing it little by little. In this way, with the things my parents taught me and my own indomitable spirit, I intend to keep moving forward no matter what.
Enough is enough, I'll just say it. Old ladies and kids are nothing but trouble. Please, just leave.
Even though my husband was drunk, those were harsh words. Ashley, our granddaughter, left the room crying.
Ashley!
It was understandable, considering her painstakingly drawn picture was thrown away right in front of her. We might never be able to go back to how things were. Just as I thought this, the doorbell rang. Who could it be at this hour? Could it be Rosalind, long time no see?
Susie! What are you doing here?
I was dumbfounded. Then my husband started speaking again.
I'm sick of old folks like you. What do you mean? You two can't possibly be.
My sister, Susie, looked down at me with a malicious smile.
Rosalind. I'm dating Jacob. What?
That's right. I'm sorry. I'm going to remarry Susie. I was so shocked that I felt cold sweat all over, and my limbs began to tremble.
I'm sorry, but I'll be taking Rosalind's husband.
Susie watched me shaking in shock for a while, as if amused. I couldn't stay like this. I had to get back at my husband and sister. Our revenge, mine and Ashley's, began from here. I am Rosalind, 60 years old. Living quietly with my husband Jacob, who just retired. Our home is in a peaceful residential area a bit away from the city center, where I ran a flower art class. After Jacob's retirement,
Although many couples experience worsening relationships, ours seemed fine. It was a bit bothersome that Jacob wanted more attention than during his working days. It was confusing at first, but maybe this was also something fresh and good. Jacob enjoyed his hobbies of fishing and chess, and I truly enjoyed interacting with friends I met through my classes. Walking our own pace in this second phase of life wasn't so bad. Just as I was starting to think this, an event happened that changed our lives.
What? Neville had an accident. No way.
It had to be a mistake. My hand holding the receiver trembled, and my mind went blank. I couldn't believe it. Jacob, too, seemed unable to grasp the situation, standing there in shock. About 3 days ago, our son and his family had gone on a trip using a long weekend with their son. The accident happened on their way back from visiting a tourist spot in New Jersey. I couldn't easily believe it.
God, please, let them be safe. Just their lives.
With a prayerful heart, we rushed from our home to a hospital in New Jersey. But what awaited us there were the already deceased, cold bodies of our son and his wife.
It can't be. No. Neville. Wake up, Neville.
The cause of the accident was apparently a large truck that had drifted into the opposing lane because the driver fell asleep. The head-on collision destroyed the car, warping the front beyond recognition. Neville and his wife, Tiffany, were almost instantly killed. Neville, who worked hard every day as a salesperson. Despite the doctor's desperate efforts, neither Neville nor Tiffany could be saved. In the cold hospital corridor, silent screams and sobs echoed. Even the usually stoic Jacob cried out loud this time. Our only son, Neville, was just 39 years old at that time. The only survivor was our granddaughter, Ashley. God had taken our only son from us. Ashley, left alone, stood frozen with a pale face, not moving an inch. From the window swayed by the cold wind, I could see rain clouds drawing near. Before I knew it, the year had changed, and it was already February. Half a year had passed since the day of that life-changing accident. In these 6 months, we barely had time to mourn as we somehow managed to finish the funeral for Neville and his wife and rushed through everything. And so, we took in our granddaughter Ashley, who had become an orphan, and began raising her. We, as a couple, were doing our best to get our new life on track. Half a year had passed, but our time seemed to have stopped on that day. While I was busy with housework and struggling with child-rearing after a long break, Jacob just absent-mindedly stared out the window. At that time, I hadn't yet realized that Jacob had changed since the accident. That day, when Ashley hadn't come back for a while, I peeked outside through the back door, and the air outside was cold enough to freeze my lungs.
Was it track and field practice today?
Watching my breath turn white in the air, I was about to close the door when Ashley came home. I'm home.
Welcome back. It must have been cold, right? Come in.
For a while after her parents' death, Ashley had closed off her heart and hardly spoke to us. But lately, she's started to show expressions typical of a middle schooler. It might be a while before we see her true smile again. She must be trying in her own way. It was awkward, but Ashley seemed to be trying hard to fit into this new family structure. Ashley is just 14 years old. In the 8th grade. Losing both parents at such a sensitive age and being forced to move and live with grandparents. Thinking about Ashley's feelings was heart-wrenching. But, contrary to my efforts to save Ashley's heart, Jacob's heart remained empty. Jacob, Ashley has come back.
Ah.
Jacob briefly responded and turned his gaze back to the TV. Just when she was starting to open up to us a little. Jacob had always enjoyed drinking, but his alcohol consumption clearly increased after Neville's death.
Perhaps it was his way of forgetting the pain of losing his only son. Thinking so, I chose to overlook it. After dinner, Ashley efficiently cleared the dishes, stood at the kitchen sink, and helped with the washing up. "Grandma, today, my drawing got an award at school." "Really? That's wonderful." Ashley's landscape painting, done at the end of the year, was selected for the cover of the school's centennial anniversary journal. "Having my drawing on the cover makes me so happy." It was the first genuine smile Ashley had shown us since she started living with us. "Grandpa, listen. Ashley, you should probably study more than focusing on your drawings." "Jacob, it's the truth, isn't it?" Indeed, Ashley was never good at studying. Her grades in math and science were terrible in the end-of-year exams. Therefore, I had to teach her late into the night every day. Starting over with child-rearing is a daunting task. Even for blood-related grandparents, it's never easy. In fact, there might be more conflicts. Jacob's attitude towards Ashley never improved. It was as if he was taking out his grief over losing Neville in the accident on her, being cold. I had been worried about my husband, who had taken to heavy drinking and becoming reclusive since the accident. Late at night, after Ashley had gone to bed, I approached Jacob. "Jacob, what was that attitude towards Ashley earlier?" "What about it?" My husband was still in the kitchen, calling it a nightcap and drinking wine. "That girl has finally started to brighten up a bit and can go to school properly, right?" "So? Going to school is expected, isn't it?" "Even so. Telling her to study more. You didn't have to say it like that." "What about you? Haven't you been all over Ashley lately? She can study on her own, can't she?" "She might struggle with her studies, but she's good at art and sports." "Isn't that enough?" Neville was good at both studies and sports, like me. Ashley doesn't take after her father at all. "Stop it! No matter what you say, Neville isn't coming back. All we can do now is raise Ashley right. Please, let's cooperate." "Look, Rosalind, I don't know about you, but I had my own plans for my second life." "But..." Jacob started to say, but stopped. "No, it's fine. It's over." Ashley was supposed to be a precious treasure for both Rosalind and Jacob. But Neville and his wife's death had negatively impacted the relationship between grandparents and granddaughter. I went to Ashley's room quietly to check on her. "Ashley, I'm sorry." A single tear was rolling down her cheek as she breathed quietly in sleep. I gently wiped away the tear and silently returned to my bedroom. That night, Jacob came home drunk late. "Hey, I'm home." "Jacob, where have you been until this late?" "Where does it matter? It's none of your business." For the past few months, Jacob has been relieving stress by going out and drinking almost every night. Inevitably, arguments and conflicts within the family increased. Jacob these days seems like a completely different person from before. Staggering drunk into the living room, Jacob slumped onto the sofa and demanded, "Bring me some water." Reluctantly, I handed him a glass of water. After finishing the water, Jacob began to talk about something unexpected. "Today, I met your sister at the bar." "What?" "Susie." I had a bad feeling. Though Susie and I are sisters, we have different mothers and are half-siblings. There's a significant age gap between us. Susie, the daughter of my father's second wife, is 47 years old, 13 years my junior. Single, she maintains her beauty well beyond her years. A few years ago, she launched a cosmetics brand called Jupiter and achieved success, even being featured in magazines. Susie could be considered beautiful, but she was a nasty piece of work, using men to climb the social ladder. Therefore, it's not entirely false to say I was a bit envious of her flashy social life from a young age. Fortunately, my stepmother, who was her mother, raised us without showing favoritism. Perhaps that's why I was able to avoid feeling inferior to the beautiful Susie. The success of her cosmetics brand, which she claims to have started with her own funds, seemed implausible. I suspected she charmed men into becoming her patrons and investing in her business. Hey, Rosalind. Have you looked in the mirror lately? Casually, I glanced at the mirror hanging on the living room wall. Reflected there was my face, looking much older than I had imagined.
Is that really me?
I reflexively looked away from the mirror. I couldn't bear to look directly at it. That was the reality. There, tired from childcare, housework, and stress, was my own reflection. I felt like I understood what Jacob wanted to say. Susie and you are completely different. Are you really sisters? In Jacob's eyes looking at me, I sensed mockery. Trembling with anger, I found no words to reply.
Yes, so what?
Just that your sister still looks beautiful with age. Unlike someone I know. Overwhelmed with intense anger and turmoil, I managed to suppress the urge to scream, briskly closed the door, and left the room. Being compared to my sister in terms of beauty and demeaned brought back painful memories. I never thought I'd face such treatment from my husband at this age. After closing the door, I couldn't hold back and quietly sobbed.
Grandma!
It seemed Ashley had overheard our shouting match. From then on, the relationship between Jacob and me rapidly deteriorated. Far from showing any remorse, Jacob's attitude towards Ashley and me became even more arrogant. His drinking habits remained bad, and he even started coming home late in the morning. Jacob had a fair amount of experience with women before we married, having dated a few others. I was worried but felt powerless to change anything. Jacob continued his nightly outings, and recently, I stopped admonishing him, silently condoning his behavior. He no longer listened to me. Though I had somewhat given up, I still hoped he would return to the kind person he once was. I can't afford to space out. I snapped back to reality. Thank you for today, Rosalind, said a student of my flower art class as we cheerfully exchanged words, and I smiled as I saw them out. I had closed the class for a while after Neville and his wife passed away, but when I reopened it, the students quickly returned. Nowadays, conversations with Jacob, who neglects the home, were virtually non-existent. He barely spoke to Ashley either. Today was the day for the flower arrangement course. The room was filled with colorful flowers, and a sweet scent wafted through the class. Interacting with the students in the class was my only joy and salvation. After everyone left, I began to tidy up the classroom. The dark blue vase was my favorite. It was something Jacob had bought for me a long time ago. I pulled a deep red rose from the vase and gazed at it. The luxurious rose, illuminated by the setting sun shining through the window, reminded me of Susie, whom Jacob had mentioned meeting recently. Jacob's words haunted me again. Have you looked in a mirror lately? A woman's worth isn't determined solely by her physical appearance. But do I have anything that surpasses Susie now?
Grandma!
Hearing that brought me back to the moment. Today is Jacob's birthday. I remembered I had planned to make steak for dinner, his favorite. I hurriedly turned to the voice. Ashley had drawn something for Jacob. Thank you. I'm sure Grandpa will come home early today, I said, though calling Jacob yielded no answer. It's a special day, yet. That night, Jacob finally came home past 10 p.m. The smell of alcohol and cigarettes lingered as he passed through the hallway. He had been drinking again today. Ashley, Grandpa's home. Ashley was holding something that looked like a piece of drawing paper. Happy birthday, Grandpa. I made this for you. I hope you like it. It was Jacob's 65th birthday today. This is supposed to be me? Doesn't look like me at all. Ashley, you always waste your time on useless things. Jacob crumpled the portrait Ashley had given him and threw it into the trash. Jacob! How could you do that? Ashley made that for you. Let me make this clear. Old ladies and kids are nothing but trouble. Get out! Even if he was drunk, those were cruel words. Ashley left the room crying. Ashley! We might never be able to go back to how things were. Just as I thought this. The doorbell rang. Who could it be at this hour? Could it be Rosalind? It's been a while. Susie! Why are you here? I was stunned. Then my husband spoke again. I'm sick of old folks like you. What do you mean? You two can't possibly be. Susie looked down at me with a malicious smile. Rosalind. I'm dating Jacob. What? That's right. Sorry. I'm going to remarry Susie. I was in shock, trembling from head to toe. I'm sorry, Rosalind. I'll be taking your husband. Susie watched me shaking in shock for a while, seemingly amused. Susie, do you understand what you're saying? Of course, I'm telling the truth, she said with a smirk and stood up. That's how it is. So, I'll be leaving now. I couldn't sleep at all that night, overwhelmed by shock. For the first time, I learned that people can't cry when they're too shocked. Less than a year after Neville's death, Ashley and I were plunged back into hell. 2 months later, Jacob and I officially divorced. It was a very sudden end to our marriage. It was an anticlimactically swift end to our marriage of 37 years since I married Jacob at 24. Afterward, Ashley and I left the house, seeking refuge with relatives. Everything precious was lost. I was overwhelmed by a sense of powerlessness and sought salvation with my uncle's family, praying for help. Spring is approaching. The warm spring breeze gently sweeps through the fields. My uncle's house is in a rural part of California. Despite the peacefulness of the spring sunshine, my heart was heavy. I had just learned that Jacob and Susie officially remarried. Grandma, what's wrong? Nothing, dear, I said, putting Alstroemeria flowers into a basket one by one. I was preparing flowers for shipment to a local fresh market. The head of the household we were staying with was my Uncle Rodney. Rodney owned several forests and fields in the area, cultivating flowers for shipment to the metropolitan area. And I was allowed to work on his farm. Rodney's family, including his wife and cousins, were all kind. I like flowers, so working on the farm doesn't bother me. But, Ashley, I'm sorry we had to move again. This was the second time Ashley had to relocate since her parents' accident. I'm sad about Grandpa, but I think this is for the best. This region, warm and comfortable, with the sea and mountains nearby, surprisingly suited Ashley well. She became more energetic about painting, joined the art club at her new school, and started attending painting classes. I do think about reopening my flower art class and becoming independent here someday. But after Neville's death, Jacob's affair, the conflict with Susie, and then the divorce, too much has happened, and I haven't been able to sort it all out in my mind. Grandma, I have something I want to talk to you about. What is it? About Susie. Look at this. Ashley showed me her mobile phone screen.
Susie!
I looked puzzled. Peering into the screen, I saw a familiar name among many.
This is...
It was about Susie and her company, Jupiter Cosmetics. There were reports that a face wash from Jupiter Cosmetics contained misleading ingredients. The product had used amounts of a currently regulated ingredient well above the legal limit, exposing the falsehood. Many people suffered severe allergic reactions, some even developed anaphylactic shock. Information posted on the internet spread quickly. Ashley noticed it through information shared by a friend who had used the cosmetics.
Susie is going to face a lot of trouble for this.
And Grandpa too.
Yes. Since it involves Grandpa, they might come to you for help.
It's okay, Ashley. You don't have to worry about that. They are now living a life that has nothing to do with us.
Okay, I understand.
I made that firm decision. A few days later, Susie's company's scandal was already on the news. According to the news, there were about 300 victims, with a legal team demanding $700,000 in compensation.
Rosalind, it must be unsettling to see your own sister like that on the news. I've caused Rodney so much trouble because of Susie and Jacob. We should have nothing to do with those kids anymore. A disgrace to the family.
Yes.
And who knows what kind of trouble they'll bring in the future.
Rodney seemed to have warned everyone in the house not to let Susie and her ilk anywhere near. No one could be pleased with Susie, who stole her sister's husband and then caused a national scandal. My feelings were complicated. My heart was restless. But my fears were realized. A few days later, I received a call from an unknown number.
Hello, is this Rosalind?
Incredibly, it was Jacob, not Susie.
What do you want now?
You're cold.
I have a favor to ask.
No.
Just hear me out. I officially married Susie recently, and I took on a role at Jupiter, but with all this mess.
And what about it?
I need money. Your father was quite wealthy, wasn't he? Didn't you inherit a good sum when he passed? What? You want to take my father's inheritance too? Don't joke with me. Don't contact me again.
The audacity to cheat with his wife's sister, abandon his family, and now try to take her inheritance. My anger reached its breaking point. I struggled to keep my composure so Ashley wouldn't notice.
Grandma, I'm home.
Ashley had returned. Perhaps there was track and field practice today. Bathed in the early summer sun, Ashley's face was slightly sunburned.
What's wrong? Eh? What do you mean? Because, Grandma, you're crying.
I hastily touched my face, realizing tears were streaming down.
Sorry. I didn't mean to involve you, Ashley. I'm truly sorry.
Unable to stop the tears, I covered my face with my hands and broke down. Then a soft hand touched my head. It was Ashley's.
Grandma, don't cry.
I could tell Ashley was looking at me worriedly. All the emotions I had been holding back overflowed. Throughout, Ashley kept stroking my head.
Grandma, you haven't done anything wrong.
I couldn't respond. Was that really true? If only I had paid more attention to Jacob after Neville's death. If only I had been more understanding of Jacob's feelings. If Neville and his family hadn't had that accident. Would our fate have been different? But now, everything was irretrievable.
Grandma, let's be happy together. Can we really be happy?
If Grandma wishes for it, we surely can.
Yes.
I'm with you, so it'll be okay.
Hee hee.
I couldn't help but cry and laugh at the same time. For the first time, I truly appreciated that Ashley had survived. That night, I made a decision. I decided to finally demand compensation from Jacob and Susie in the divorce settlement.
Ashley, I have something to discuss with you.
What's up? I'm thinking of starting the flower art class again. What do you think? Ashley smiled. I think it's great. I totally support it. I believed that having a substantial amount of money was absolutely necessary to raise Ashley properly. Ashley accepted this proposal with a smile. Rodney's family is all very kind. I've never felt uncomfortable here, but I started to think about beginning a new life with Ashley. Caring for the beautiful flowers on this farm deepened my love for them. Flower art was one of the lessons our mother had us take as children. Susie quit halfway through, but I continued because I loved flowers. A few weeks later, I received a call from Susie. Rosalind, what's the meaning of this? A claim for compensation from the divorce now? I just got a call from the lawyer. It's my right. For the treatment I received from you and Jacob. It's your fault for losing your husband to me. It's not my fault. Your words are as disjointed as ever. That's why I hate you. Always acting so smart and playing the good person, liked by everyone. I despise that about you. You felt that way? It was surprising. You always had people around you, cherished by Dad and Mom. Someone like you could never understand my feelings. Susie! You know, my company is finished now. Sued by the victims, $700,000 in damages. And now, a compensation claim from the divorce? Don't joke. Susie, I've always felt inferior to you. We were the same, weren't we? Realizing this now. But I can't back down this time. This is also for Neville. Neville, watch over us from heaven. I will surely raise your daughter well. Reconciling with Susie and Jacob in this lifetime might be difficult. But that's okay. I'll live by my beliefs. I've decided to be happy with Ashley. The following week, 2 pieces of good news arrived from school. One was that Ashley had excelled in track and field, qualifying for a competition in hurdles. And the other. Really? Ashley's painting! Really? Auntie, I get to go to the Netherlands. I couldn't believe it at first. Ashley's painting had won a competition. She had entered a summer painting contest organized by a famous art supply company. Her painting won the grand prize and would be temporarily exhibited in a renowned museum in the Netherlands. Besides the prize money, the winner received travel and accommodation expenses. This news made it to the newspapers, and eventually to Jacob. He called again. Hello, is this Ashley? It's been a while. How are you? I'm fine. I saw the newspaper. It's amazing you won a prize. Let your grandfather see it too. I can't. It will be displayed in a museum in the Netherlands. I heard there's prize money too. Can you get Rosalind for me? I want to talk to her. No. Grandma said she won't give you any of the prize money. And I wasn't talking about the money, really. Jacob had unexpectedly visited the house a few days before, begging Rosalind for reconciliation. Given the timing, it was inevitable to think he was after the prize money. Rosalind had no intention of starting over with Jacob. By this time, Jacob was completely worn down. The financial losses from Susie's cosmetic business, the collective lawsuit, and now the divorce compensation had nearly driven them mad. Or maybe they were already broken. Susie's beauty was gone, looking even older than her age. Without any care for her appearance or makeup, on the verge of insanity. The price of an affair, stealing a husband from her own sister, was unimaginably high.
After scrambling for funds, we ended up with a $500,000 debt. Jacob and Susie were completely worn out, both mentally and physically. Their relationship was on the brink of collapse just after getting married.
I wish I had never married you. You're useless. What? You're the one who seduced me first. I'm the one who got deceived. Give me back my life.
It was then Jacob realized Susie had never truly loved him. Susie, sensing her cosmetics business was in trouble, had been looking for someone to marry and live off. Jacob finally understood she had just used and discarded him. This affair was also partly a revenge against Rosalind, whom Susie had always been jealous of. But it was all too late now. Gone were the money, home, family, love, and even memories. Except for his self-destructive and nearly insane new wife. Later, I heard Jacob and Susie started working at a classic hotel far up north, living there as well. Jacob had held a respectable position during his active career. Susie, formerly a cosmetics company executive, must have struggled in the new environment. But my life had been freed from those two. I had no interest in meddling or being meddled with anymore. There was just one thing that nagged at me. That classic hotel was very close to the last place Neville's family had visited before their accident. The autumn leaves would be beautiful by now. Could they be for Neville's memorial? It was mere speculation. But Neville was Rosalind and Jacob's irreplaceable only son. That was a fact. In hindsight, everything started with that accident. No one to blame, no one who could be blamed. Just a sorrowful, regretful memory. In my heart, I silently bid farewell to Jacob and Susie, who had betrayed me. And as seasons turned, we faced the second spring since the accident. With the funds we had, Ashley and I bought a house a little away from Rodney's, starting anew. We moved close enough so Ashley wouldn't have to change middle schools. That's where I finally reopened the flower art class. Close to the station, the location was perfect. Ashley's students' wanted poster was well received, attracting many students right away.
Grandma, the painting displayed at the museum is back.
In Ashley's hands was a painting of Neville, his wife Tiffany, and Ashley herself, gazing at a flower field illuminated by the setting sun. It's beautiful every time I see it. Neville and Tiffany would be happy.
Yeah, I think so too.
We smiled at each other.
What do you think about displaying this painting in the flower art class for a while? Of course.
Ashley's painting was actually going to be donated to the museum afterward. But wanting to make her grandmother happy, Ashley readily agreed to Rosalind's request.
Grandma, you know. I'm not angry at Grandpa and them anymore. Is that okay?
At first, I was surprised by her sudden declaration. But at the same time, I felt a resonance with Ashley's thoughts. Ashley, you can do as you like.
Okay.
Whatever the feeling, it's yours, Ashley. Who you forgive or don't forgive is up to you.
Thank you.
Yes, those two had already received enough punishment. I should also set myself free. At 62. Life is still ahead of me. Above Rosalind and Ashley, the future was shining brightly, waiting to be embraced.